Alright y'all, Bubba here again. Today I'm finally going to do the video on wet forming. I've been talking about it and I do it on a lot of my projects and you've seen it, but I've never actually showed you, and I said I was gonna. So what I've got here is a holster, well, a sheath that I've got ready to wet form. The only thing I've done that I haven't shown you is I ran it under hot water. The purpose for running under hot water is it helps it harden when it dries up a little bit. So I ran it under the hot water. Some folks will say run it till the bubbles stop. I didn't do all that. I don't know. I don't see bubbles. I just run it. And one thing I do is I rub it to get like excess dye off of it, and I think it helps even the color out. That's my personal opinion. I think it does. And when it got done, I brought it back to the table, and whatever little excess water, I just dabbed it off. Now, you probably should use a clean rag. This one was just laying around. I picked it up to show you that. The other one's right here that I used, just daub it off. And then what you want to do is you let it kind of set for a minute. Long enough to do whatever. Get your stuff together, get the knife. And if it's high carbon steel, you should wrap your knife. Even if it's not, you probably should still wrap your knife. But the way I do it is that once it's set for just a second, I just take the knife and I slowly go in, let me back up. I open the hole a bit with my fingers. I go ahead and start the process with my fingers. Then I line it up and I just shove the knife in there. It's pretty simple. Make sure it's straight. Make sure your blade's not going to shoot out the side. I've actually had that happen, not paying attention, and I ended up cutting right through my sheath. That was annoying. I was upset. I had to redo the whole thing. Now, on a sheath that you've stamped, some of your stamping is going to go away when it stretches. Can you see that? How much it's here, how light it's getting here. That's kind of common. So what I recommend, let me see if I can move you a little bit, is when you're doing this, try not to use, a lot of times I'll use this right here, and I'll work it in, fat to thin. So try not to use that on too much of this, or you will actually lose a whole bunch of your stamping. So I just do it by hand if I have a whole lot of stamping on it. And I just get it to where I think it's going to look good. Make sure it's all the way in there. Make sure it fits right. Adjust everything how I want it. See how it fit? And this one has a lip on the knife, right here on the handle. So I'm going to make sure that that point on this knife is actually worked decently, and it'll add a catch so it doesn't want to slide out, but not too much so that I don't lose my stamping. Will this help? Bam. I don't know. So I'll do it just enough, but not too much where I lose my stamp. Just work that in there. And that's pretty much all you got to do. Now, if you're going to leave this overnight, I highly recommend you wrap this in cellophane. I have one up there. A little hand roll does the job. But I'm not going to leave this overnight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out. I'm going to squeeze it slightly. And I'm going to let it sit on the side to dry. And then later on, I'm going to come back when it's almost dry. And I'm going to make sure the knife goes in and out and fits again. Adjust it a little bit more. Make sure my wet forming is how I want it to be. And then call it good. I might come back again, but I don't just do it once and run off. I make sure it's decent enough so that when I come back later, it'll be just right. If that makes sense. Because what'll happen if you don't check it, it will actually dry up and shrink and not fit. So I check it a couple more times throughout the process. Now this one's the same guy, different style. And I gave him a lot of room right here. Normally I wouldn't give this much room on this style, but he's a beekeeper. So I didn't know if he wore bee suits. I didn't know how big a belt would be different. And I didn't know how much slack he would need. But both of these are his. He only ordered one. But he's a great guy and he's a good friend. So I made both styles because he wasn't sure which style he wanted or needed. And just in case, I put a whole lot of slack right here. It's a lot more than I normally would put. And it should hang on his belt like this, where you can reach over, grab it, and go. But I'm doing the same thing on this one. I'm making sure that this point right here, because that's my lock-in point, because of this little knob right there. And then get them squished. Make sure the knife is straight. The blade is straight in there. That way you don't mess up. It'll actually do funny things if it's not the way it belongs. And since this is deer antler, it's curved slightly. So I work the leather so the leather wraps with the handle and make sure it's where it needs to be. Make sure it's tight. Rub it just a little bit with my fingers because I don't want all that stamping to go away. Then I'll pull it out and call it good. And that's all I do for wet forming. Let it sit a little while. Come back, stick the implement back in the sheath or holster, whatever you're using. Make sure it fits. And then when it's almost dry, you can do your final little squishes and adjustments. And then let it sit overnight. And then tomorrow we will oil it and seal it. I'm probably going to give this one a beeswax treatment. Make it good and tough. But boom, I just pulled the knife out. And I'm going to squeeze this right here. You can see where it was. I'm just going to squeeze it a slight bit. Just enough so that when it dries, it should be a good little point to where it'll catch that and not let the knife slide out. Alright, I sure appreciate y'all watching. Y'all like it, share it, tell your buddies. If you got any questions, comment below. Sorry about the beard, I had respirator training. Sorry I haven't been on here a lot. I've been real busy. Wife got her grooming salon opened up, everything's rocking and rolling. Been teaching classes, things been busy. I've been loving it. Kids are doing good. Appreciate y'all very much. Hope you like this video. All right, y'all. Take care now.